may be able to achieve.
Well, President Donald Trump is also slamming Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein after she released more than 300 pages of interview transcripts from her committee's investigation into Russian meddling. In a tweet this morning, the president said the fact that sneaky Dianne Feinstein would release testimony in such an underhanded and possibly illegal way, totally without authorization, is a disgrace. At issue are the transcripts from Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson. Feinstein said that she released the transcripts at his urging because the American people deserve the opportunity to read them. But her Republican counterpart, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, called the move confounding and says it jeopardizes the committee's ability to secure further witness interviews. Fusion GPS was a firm behind the so-called Trump dossier of allegations against Mr. Trump. One of the main headlines from Simpson's testimony was that the dossier was not the sole catalyst for the FBI's investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. The president once again rejected that talk on Twitter today, writing there was no collusion, and yet on it goes. Republicans should finally take control. Joining me now is Lewis Nelson. He's a reporter for Politico. So what's the sense here? What exactly was he suggesting here when he says that Republicans should finally take control?
Well, I think Dianne Feinstein's sort of making this unilateral decision to release this dossier without sort of agreement from her Republican colleagues on the Senate Judiciary Committee really sort of gets at the heart of or speaks to the frustration that President Donald Trump has expressed about this, that Democrats who aren't in power in the Senate, aren't in power in the House, and obviously aren't in the White House, have somehow managed to still sort of be able to lead from the minority a push about this investigation, and have been able to really, maybe not control the narrative, but have been able to substantially put pressure on this investigation and keep a spotlight on it in a way that the president pretty clearly doesn't think is valid or fair.
Lewis, Senator Grassley told one of our CBS News colleagues today that he didn't know what the president had in mind with this tweet, but he also warned, "I hope he doesn't call me and tell me the same thing." Are Republicans concerned with the president trying to interfere in this investigation?
I think Republicans, sort of writ large, are concerned about the president's willingness to meddle in ongoing investigations, into congressional investigations certainly, but also I think more problematically, even for some Republicans, his willingness to sort of wade into and attempt to influence the ongoing investigation led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. That one the president's willingness to sort of discuss that openly and comment on it breaks with a pretty long-standing precedent from presidents of both parties that the president stays out of Justice Department investigations, allows the Justice Department to operate independently. That's not a norm that the president seems very interested in maintaining, or hasn't so far through a year of his administration.
Senator Grassley also said that this release hurts his committee's ability to get further testimony. He specifically referenced Jared Kushner. Do you think that's the case?
I mean, I think some of this is certainly partisan. I'm not sure to the extent to which this is going to harm or not harm the Senate Judiciary Committee's ability to conduct a thorough investigation. But I would suspect that at least some of that is sort of partisan back and forth here. Democrats had wanted to release this transcript that Senator Feinstein wound up releasing. The Fusion GPS folks had called on Republicans to do so. Republicans weren't willing to do so. And so there's a lot of partisan back and forth, particularly on this Russia investigation, although certainly anytime you are releasing documents involved with an ongoing investigation, I'm sure there's certainly some who would argue that there's certainly a threat of endangering that investigation.
And at the same time as all this is going on, the president also slamming the court ruling that temporarily blocks his move to end the DACA program that protects dreamers. He said that it shows how broken and how unfair the court system is. How do you think this is going to impact lawmakers trying to strike a deal on immigration?
Well, the president has been pretty clear about putting pressure on lawmakers. He would like to get this done. He would like, he said yesterday at this sort of unprecedentedly open to the public meeting with members of both parties, both houses of Congress, that he wanted to get this done. He was willing to go with whatever they said. At the same time, the president, like I just said before, has been very willing through 1 year of his presidency to go after the judicial system, go after the judiciary. I think notably in this particular case, he complained in the tweet this morning about the Ninth Circuit. Even though the judge involved in this particular decision doesn't sit on the Ninth Circuit, they just both happen to be from California.
Mm-hmm. Earlier today also, when you're talking about the president, he boasted about the bipartisan meeting. Boy, what a view that was for us yesterday on immigration, that he took us inside the White House. I want to play you a bite from the president from earlier today.
And it was a tremendous meeting. Actually, it was reported as incredibly good. And my performance, some of them called it a performance, I consider it work. But got great reviews by everybody other than two networks who were phenomenal for about 2 hours.
Phenomenal for about 2 hours. You know, it did spark a great deal of confusion. We were reporting this out yesterday, and then we had the press secretary come out and try and sort of clean up a bit of what he was saying. What is his position on immigration?
Boy, that's a great question, because it seemed to move around a little bit even within that particular meeting yesterday, right? Senator Feinstein seemed to make a suggestion, or did make a suggestion at one point, that Congress ought to move a clean DACA bill, a bill not attached to anything else that addresses the situation of Dreamers and sort of protects them, codifies into law protections for them. And Trump sort of immediately seemed open to that until other Republicans spoke up and said, no, that's not really what we're interested in. We want to tie these things together, and we want to make sure that we're not back in this position again where we don't have to address a similar situation down the road. So, the president in sort of broad strokes has been clear about his position on immigration. But as far as indicating really specifically what exactly he wants to do, that has moved around a little bit, although Sarah Sanders and other people at the White House have been a little bit more concrete on that, more concrete even than the president has been.
Before we let you go, Louis, I want to ask you about your take on the fact that Republican Congressman Darrell Issa announced today that he's retiring. It's the latest in a wave of Republicans leaving office. What's behind this?
Well, he's retiring. He announced his retirement today, and he's the second fairly influential, I think very influential, California Republican to announce retirement this week. Ed Royce, who's the Republican chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, announced this week that he would resign. And I think the notion here is that I think there's a lot of Republicans concerned about this big blue wave coming later this year in 2018, concerned that might actually come true, that there is a wave of Democrats coming that might be swept in on some anti-Trump sentiment built up. I mean, everybody has seen the president's popularity ratings are historically low for somebody so early in his first term. And so I think that there's a concern there that they might get swept out, especially if you're a California Republican, if you're somebody like Chairman Issa, or Congressman Issa, rather, he's not a chairman anymore, representing a district in San Diego and Southern California in Orange County. Used to be a safe red seat, but Hillary Clinton won that district last year or 2 years ago, rather, by, I think, something like 7 points.
Louis Nelson from Politico, thank you for joining us, Louis.